In 1978, the Conservative Party hit on a fantastic election poster. Labour isn't working. Unemployment had recently hit 1.6 million, or 5%. Ironically, a few years later, unemployment would more than double to over 3 million and 12%, due to the early 1980s recession. That's another story. But what about today, in 2024? Is there a new epidemic of economically inactive people? In total, the UK has 10.5 million people of working age who are not in work. This contrasts with 32 million adults who are working, so nearly a quarter of the population are out of work. Why are so many people out of work? Does this explain why immigration has been so high? And is there anything that we can do about it? Firstly, this rate of people not working is not something new. Ever since the early 1980s, the UK has had over 10 million adults not working at all. The peaks were in the early 80s and 90s, corresponding to recessions which saw unemployment go up. So this figure of 10.5 million people not working includes two main factors. Firstly, you have a 1.5 million unemployed, people actively seeking work. The other 9 million is people counted as economically inactive. That means they're not actively seeking work. And what comprises this economic inactivity? The biggest group is people leaving the labour force because of sickness. 2.8 million long-term sickness, 200,000 short-term sickness. And this is perhaps the most concerning sector because it's increased by nearly 1 million in the past few years. The biggest cause, the biggest reason given is mental health issues followed by bad backs and acute medical conditions. Neurological conditions like strokes, Parkinson's and dementias have all increased rapidly in the developed world. And the problem is, it's not just these long-term sickness affecting the workforce, but also it's causing more people to need to stay at home to look after family members with long-term sickness. In the 1990s, people staying at home was nearly 3 million. Now this has fallen to 1.7 million, a reflection that perhaps more women are going out to work than they did a few decades ago. But also perhaps more people feel the need to work as well as acting for carer, needing to juggle both work and looking after family members. Certainly the care sector has been hard hit, with local councils struggling with excess demand for care workers. And without government support, many are left juggling these two. The next reason for inactivity is students, but if you are juggling several things, you might be interested in today's very quick video sponsor. I'd just like to introduce today's video sponsor, which is HelloFresh. They offer a weekly subscription service sending lots of great choice of meals directly to your door. You can see here the wonderful array of ingredients, and this is a menu card which shows the ingredients and also 6 pretty simple steps to follow. And portions start from as low as £3.15, so it's quite affordable. What I'm going to do now is going to go and cook all these ingredients, and we're back pretty soon to tell you what it's like. So that was pretty quick, but I got a lovely meal and I've already tasted it, it's really good. And there's a special offer if you want to try HelloFresh, 60% off your first delivery and then 20% off for the next 2 months, plus free desserts for life, which are really tasty. So do check it out, there's a link in the description box or on screen now. So I'm going to go and enjoy this. The number of students in the UK has increased from 1.5 million to 2.5 million, largely due to an expansion of university education. It's a far cry from the 1960s when just 200,000 people were in higher education. Now, on the one hand, the UK's service sector economy has a need for skilled and qualified workers. More in education means fewer workers, but also a more qualified workforce. Now, the UK has a particular problem with low productivity, and education and training is one route to increasing productivity that we desperately need to do. Still, some might argue we've gone a bit too far in pushing university education. with perhaps less academically gifted students spending 3 years for a university degree, when maybe they would be better spent on a shorter vocational qualification more suited to the needs of the economy. The next big reason for inactivity is early retirement. In 2009, this actually reached 1.5 million and has since fallen to around 1 million. This is a reflection perhaps of the past decade of ultra-low interest rates, reducing the income from savings, and also stagnant wages forcing more people back into work. On the other hand, rising house prices have given people who own a house a kind of a nest egg, which makes early retirement easier. The last reason for inactivity is other, and the ONS state that other includes people who are deciding what to do next. People who don't feel the need to work, perhaps because they won the lottery or more likely they inherited a lot of money. Perhaps people just wanting to live a simple life. Remember the Good Life comedy programme on BBC, grow your own vegetables. I tried to do it, not much success. The last group of people not working are those counted as officially unemployed. People actively seeking work. A good question is, how come there are 1.4 million unemployed when we have a lot of labour market vacancies and firms saying they can't fill jobs, need immigrants from abroad? Well, firstly, in any economy, there will always be some frictional unemployment. That's people in between jobs. If you lost your job today, you wouldn't necessarily jump into the first available job, be it a cleaner or working at McDonald's. You'd prefer to wait until a job more suited to your skills came along. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. We do want to match people to the right skills, and this might take time. But secondly, there is a real problem of mismatch of skills in the labour force. And in particular, many sectors like lorry drivers, fruit pickers, carers, medical staff, they say there's a shortage, especially of native-born workers who don't particularly want to go down that career path for whatever reason, be it economic or personal. Is it a fair point to say we have high levels of inactivity because of generous benefits? I'm not too convinced by this. Certainly in the past 14 years, many benefits have been cut in real terms. The poorest decile have seen a fall in real income in the past 14 years because of reduced real benefits. Unemployment benefits is a smaller share of real wages. Housing benefit has been cut, especially for those with more than 2 children. And sickness benefits are not particularly generous. Could anything be done to reduce the levels of economic inactivity? Well, firstly, the rate of employment is actually near an all-time high. It's about 74%. It was high before COVID, but it's actually higher than the 80s, 90s and 2000s. Secondly, economic inactivity is not necessarily a bad thing. Education has value. So does being a carer. In a way, this is a job just not recognised as a job and paid. But just because you don't have a formal job title doesn't make it any less valuable. Also, bringing up children can be beneficial to families. But I think it's also fair to say that the social care sector is in close to crisis, and it does need great attention. Many people who have to stay at home to look after family members would actually like to be out working, and if there was better support for social care, that would enable some people to get back to work. Unfortunately, since Theresa May's so-called death tax suggestion at the 2017 election, parties have not wanted to touch this political dynamite. A big concern really is the rise in long-term sickness, getting close to 3 million people, and certainly record NHS waiting lists of over 7 million can't be helping. They may be part of a problem. Also, certain departments like mental health are particularly stretched, despite this kind of anxiety being given as a main reason for people not being able to work. Now, I've also spoken to quite a few employers lately, and they do suggest there's been a shift in attitude since COVID. It's harder to employ people. Workers are more willing to ring in sick, a bit more flaky, not keen on promotion, all these kinds of things. I think that COVID did change people's perceptions of work, greater willingness to step back and think, do I want to do this? Now, I agree there's not so much scientific rigour in just talking to a few employers, and I don't have data to really back that up, but I think there has been some shift since COVID, and it might be hard to change. Nevertheless, there are still some policies the government can pursue, better childcare, better social care. And this can play some role in reducing inactivity. But it is worth bearing in mind there's always going to be quite a lot. But the rise in sickness is a really big problem. However, the problems facing the UK economy are much more serious than just inactivity. This video explains all the many reasons such as low investment, low wage growth, which explain why the UK is in such a bit of a mess at the moment.